The clouds hung low like a curse over the island of Sodier. What was supposed to be a sunny afternoon had turned into a haze of swirling gray. The familiar tracks shimmered with the reflection of incoming rain as a cold wind swept through the hills. The usually cheerful chirps of birds were drowned by the distant rumble of thunder. Something felt wrong. Thomas the Tank Engine rolled slowly through the station, his blue frame dulled by the darkening sky. His cheerful demeanor had been dampened since the odd letter arrived the night before, a warning scribbled in shaky handwriting. Do not pass the depot. He is there. He changes you. He didn't recognize the handwriting, but it had been enough to disturb his dreams. Still, curiosity always burned brighter than fear. I don't get what's so scary, Percy said, puffing beside him. It's probably just another prank from Diesel 10. He loves doing this around storm season. But what if it's not? Thomas replied, a strange weight in his voice. Then came the first bolt of lightning. It cracked across the sky, illuminating the landscape in a brief, ghostly glow. The strike hit a tree not far from the tracks, splintering its trunk and sending it crashing down across their path. Thomas skidded to a halt, steam hissing as his brakes squealed. Percy backed up. Blocked. We need to go around, Thomas said. But the only way is through the old depot. Percy's wheels trembled. That place is cursed. James appeared from behind the hill, his red paint wet from the drizzle. The depot, he said, overhearing them. That place hasn't been used in years. Ever since the explosion. The depot had a history, one buried deep in Sodier's past. It was once the center of experimental rail development, until a mysterious fire consumed the facility, leaving behind nothing but burnt steel and rumors. Some said a scientist had gone mad there. Others claimed he never left. Thomas looked at the dark path ahead. Lightning split the sky again, closer this time. There was no choice. Let's go, he said. The depot loomed like a skeleton from another time. Rusted rails twisted like veins through the gravel, and broken light poles stood like forgotten sentinels. Everything here whispered decay. As they approached, James slowed. I'm not going any farther. This place, something's wrong with it. Thomas ignored him. The fear was there, gripping his gears, but something stronger pulled him forward. A presence. A call. Percy, reluctantly, followed behind. Then, snap. The old bridge collapsed beneath them. The world spun. Metal groaned. And Thomas fell. Thomas's vision returned slowly. He was lying on his side in a cavern of steel and broken concrete. His body hurt in a way he couldn't explain. He blinked. Percy was groaning nearby. Thomas, where are we? They were in a tunnel, but not just any tunnel. This was something deeper, colder, older. The walls were lined with pipes and exposed wires. Symbols glowed faintly on the walls, strange, looping patterns that looked alive. A light flickered on. A silhouette emerged. Long lab coat. Cracked goggles. A face half covered in metallic implants. The scientist. His voice was oil and madness. Well. The heart of Sodier himself. Thomas tried to back up, but his wheels wouldn't move. You'll be perfect, the scientist said. They called me mad. They banished me here. But you'll make them remember. What do you want? Thomas gasped. To evolve you, the scientist hissed. A metal arm unfolded from the ceiling, snapping into place like a spider's leg. Clamps latched onto Thomas's side. He screamed. Percy tried to ram into the machinery but was knocked aside by a shockwave. Thomas's consciousness flickered as the machine roared to life. It was pain. More pain than Thomas had ever known. His frame cracked, stretched, twisted. His face distorted into something long and monstrous. His paint bubbled and peeled away. Wires replaced nerves. Steam turned into something darker, something alive. His mind fought to hold on to who he was. But the voice, the scientist's voice, kept whispering. They left you. They replaced you. You were always just a tool. And the whisper became louder than the memories. When Thomas opened his eyes again, they glowed red. The walls shattered with a single roar. The evil Train Eater had awoken. In the next section, Thomas escapes the laboratory and unleashes chaos in the subway. The military is called in, but nothing can stop the unstoppable. His friends must decide whether to flee or face the monster their friend has become. Would you like me to continue with the next 1,000 words? Great! Here's the continuation. The depot cracked open like a shell as the mutated Thomas exploded from the underground. Metal twisted beneath his new, hulking form. He was no longer the tidy blue engine known across the island. His wheels were jagged and uneven, forged of scrap and fury. His face, once friendly and full of childlike wonder, now bore sharp steel teeth, wires protruding like tendrils from the sides. His eyes burned red, scanning for anything that moved. Percy screamed from behind a broken pillar. Thomas! It's me! Please, snap out of it. But the Train Eater didn't blink. He was no longer listening. Alarms blared across the nearby subway station as Thomas stormed through the tunnel, his massive frame cracking tiles and setting off sparks in the rail lines. Sirens followed, and the panic of dozens of workers and passengers echoed like a wave crashing against the underground. People ran. Screamed. Hid. Above, military vehicles rolled in. Soldiers poured from trucks, weapons drawn, their boots pounding in rhythm with the rising chaos. Thomas crashed through the turnstiles like paper. A soldier barked into a radio, visual on the target. Holy God, it's an engine. A living engine. Open fire. The first volley hit his side. But it didn't slow him. The steel that now armored Thomas wasn't just metal, it was something organic, regenerative, fused with whatever the scientist had injected. He roared, the sound a blend of steam whistle and monstrous howl, and lunged forward. Two soldiers vanished beneath his massive wheels. Blood on the rails. Deep inside the chaos, Percy followed at a distance, desperate, horrified. He saw what Thomas had become, but still believed there was a piece of him in there. He raced ahead, dodging smoke and fire until he reached a broken intercom unit, half crushed on the subway wall. He wired himself in, trembling. Thomas, if you can hear me, please, stop. No response. Only the echoes of metal groaning in the distance. You're not a monster. You're my friend. You helped me learn how to puff uphill. You taught me how to whistle loud enough for the kids at the station. You. Static interrupted him. Then, a flicker on a nearby monitor. Thomas. Staring directly into a camera. Red eyes trembling. His mouth didn't move, but the speakers came to life. I hurt. Make it stop. Percy gasped. Thomas, I'm coming. Just hold on. Back in the secret lab, the scientist was watching the destruction unfold on a dozen flickering screens. He chuckled, his fingers wrapped around a rusted lever. Perfect, he whispered. Pain makes power. But he wasn't alone. From the shadows stepped James and Emily, burned, bruised, but alive. You did this, James growled. I perfected him, the scientist replied. Your island forgot what engines were built for, progress. But Thomas, he's my masterpiece. Emily rammed forward, knocking equipment aside. James launched himself toward the controls. Too late, the scientist hissed. You want him back? Then you'll have to destroy everything I've made. He pulled the lever. Sirens erupted. The lab began to collapse. Thomas, now beneath a burning subway line, twisted in confusion. He could feel something deep inside, the fire, the hunger, but also something else. Voices. Children's laughter. Sir Topham Hatt's words. The sound of his whistle echoing through Happy Hills. He stopped. Just for a second. The ground beneath him trembled as explosions rang from the depot. A burst of flame surged through the tunnels, licking the walls, scorching signs. The military scrambled to escape. In the midst of the inferno, Percy appeared, brave and foolish. He rolled up to Thomas and stared into those burning eyes. "I'm not leaving you," Percy said. Thomas growled, twitching. Percy reached forward, his buffer touching Thomas's. "Come back." And then a tear. Not of water, but of oil, slid down Thomas's face. The fire raged behind them, painting the subway tunnels in flickering shades of red and orange. Concrete cracked, tiles fell, and the rails sparked as systems overloaded. Percy stood firm, his small frame shaking, facing down the monster his best friend had become. Thomas's massive form loomed above him, smoke pouring from his warped funnels. His breathing came in heavy mechanical huffs, each exhale sounding like a dying whistle. His wheels ground against the rails as if unsure whether to pounce or collapse. "Thomas," Percy said again, quieter now. "You don't have to do what he made you to do. You're stronger than that." For a moment, nothing. Then, Thomas let out a tortured groan. His head tilted. And inside the fire of those glowing red eyes, something flickered. Recognition. "I remember," Thomas muttered, his voice gravel and metal. "The hill, the windmill, your whistle." Percy smiled through his tears. "Yes. That's right. You're not a monster. You're my best friend." But that fragile moment was shattered by the sudden roar of an approaching engine. Behind the flame, through the smoke, another figure emerged, bulky, twisted, steaming with rage. It was Diesel 0X, another victim of the scientist's experimentation, a failed prototype he had discarded. And now, it wanted revenge, on Thomas. "You took what was mine." Diesel 0X bellowed, eyes glowing green. "You were his perfect one. And now you're weak." Diesel 0X rammed forward, his metal spikes glinting in the firelight. Thomas roared, not in anger, but in fear. "I can't stop it, Percy. I can't hold it back." "You can." Percy shouted, racing toward Diesel 0X. The tunnel collapsed around them as the two monsters collided. Debris flew as Thomas and Diesel 0X crashed together in a storm of metal and sparks. Pipes burst overhead, raining water onto the inferno. Percy was flung to the side, his vision blurred. Thomas was fighting, but not just Diesel 0X. He was fighting himself. Inside his mind, the voice of the scientist returned. "They left you behind. They made you small. I made you strong. Embrace it." But other voices rose. "Emily. James. Sir Topham Hatt." Children clapping along the platform. And Percy's voice, echoing through the roar. "You are more than your frame, Thomas. You are heart. You are hope." Thomas screamed, not as a beast, but as a soul breaking free. His form pulsed, then trembled violently. The monstrous steel cracked. The red glow faded. And for a heartbeat, Thomas was Thomas again. Blue. Brave. And burning with determination. He looked at Diesel 0X and whispered, "I'm not your weapon." Then he charged, full speed. The impact sent shockwaves through the entire tunnel system. Diesel 0X's frame twisted, shrieked, then exploded in a burst of fire and wires. The shockwave knocked Percy onto his side and sent Thomas flying back into the rubble. Silence. Only the hiss of steam. The glow of fire. And the steady dripping of broken pipes. Percy dragged himself forward. "Thomas." A cough of steam. A low groan. From beneath the debris, Thomas stirred, scarred, battered, smoke rising from every joint, but no longer a monster. His eyes were blue again. Soft. Exhausted. But his. Percy smiled, crying. You came back. Thomas chuckled weakly. Took me long enough, huh? Sirens approached in the distance. James and Emily were returning with help. The fire crews, the cleanup trains, and even Sir Topham Hatt himself would be there soon. But none of them would understand what really happened beneath the island. What it took to bring a friend back from the edge. Days passed. The depot was sealed. The tunnels filled in. The government claimed it was an electrical failure. The scientist? Vanished. Some say he was buried beneath the collapse. Others swear they've seen his shadow in the fog at night. Thomas was repaired, repainted. But not completely. They left a thin black stripe down his side, like a scar. He requested it. To remember, he said. And sometimes, when the night is quiet and the steam is thin, you can hear him talking to Percy. About the voice he heard. About the pain. About the moment he nearly forgot who he was. And Percy always answers, gently, but you didn't. That's what matters. The skies over Sodia returned to their usual calm. The trains bustled, the birds chirped again, and children returned to the platforms, waving flags and cheering as their favorite engines rolled by. But deep beneath the surface, in the veins of iron and forgotten tunnels, something still pulsed. Thomas stood atop a grassy hill overlooking the rail yard, the sun warm on his steel. The windmills turned gently in the distance, the scent of fresh oil and spring flowers mixing in the breeze. To the outside world, everything was perfect. But Thomas still felt the weight inside. He had nightmares. Flashes of the transformation. The feeling of being watched. Of control slipping through his bolts. Of becoming something else. The black stripe along his side, left as a mark of his survival, burned some nights like a wound that wouldn't close. Still having the dreams? Percy asked as he puffed up beside him, carrying a load of cargo. Thomas nodded. Every time I shut down to rest. I see him. I see what I did. Who I almost became. Percy looked down at the tracks for a long moment. You're not him anymore. I could be, Thomas whispered. What if he comes back? What if he's not done with me? At that moment, a new whistle echoed in the distance. Not cheerful. Not familiar. A low, broken screech. Thomas and Percy turned. And far beyond the hills, where the depot had been sealed, a single light blinked red beneath the earth. That night, Thomas couldn't rest. He rolled through the sleeping yard in silence, ignoring the rustle of owls, the croak of frogs by the river. He moved as if pulled by invisible chains, back toward the depot ruins. Percy had followed, even when Thomas begged him not to. They reached the place together. But it was no longer sealed. A jagged hole had formed in the rubble, carved from within. It led deep down, into blackness. Into silence. And then. A whisper. Faint, electronic, and chilling. I made you strong. They made you weak. Thomas shook. He's still alive. They descended. The tunnel was cracked and flooded in places. Machines sparked, half buried in mud. But deeper still, they found a new chamber, hidden even from the original lab. And in the center stood a new creature. Not the scientist. But something worse. A fusion. The scientist had uploaded himself, become part of the failed prototypes. Metal and madness. Wires and wrath. His voice came through broken speakers. I was never after one creation. I wanted a new breed. You were only the beginning. Behind him, rows of twisted engines lined the walls, half-built, twitching, whispering in distorted tones. Thomas's engine began to rattle. Percy gasped, we have to stop him now. Thomas narrowed his eyes. No. We have to end this. The battle was chaos. Thomas charged first, ripping through rusted equipment, smashing experimental frames. Percy helped, throwing his weight into old tanks and unfinished parts. But the scientist fought back, flooding the chamber with steam, triggering traps, reactivating old prototypes. And then, one final monster descended from the ceiling. It looked like Thomas, but taller, sharper, black and red. Train Eater Mark II. Your replacement, the voice hissed. The evolution of fear. Thomas faced it alone, their wheels grinding, their whistles screaming. The battle tore through the underground, shattering walls, collapsing decades of hidden horror. But Thomas had something his clone didn't. A soul. And a friend. With Percy's help, he pinned the Train Eater beneath a broken beam. The chamber began to collapse. You go, Thomas shouted. Save the others. Percy refused. I'm not leaving you again. But Thomas pushed him forward. Please. I have to finish this. Percy's whistle echoed as he rolled away, tears mixing with steam. The explosion that followed lit the night sky like a second sun. Everyone in Sodier saw it, like a star dying. They found Thomas hours later, buried in rubble but alive. Burned. Bent. But breathing. He was carried home with reverence. A hero. The depot was finally sealed. Forever. Concrete. Steel. Time. Sir Topham had made an official statement, there will be no more experiments on Sodier. No more secrets beneath our rails. But Thomas never forgot. He still bore the scar. The dreams continued. But now they ended differently. He would still see the monster. Still feel the pain. But now, he heard a voice. Percy's voice. You came back. And Thomas would smile in his sleep. Because no matter how far you fall, if someone believes in you, you can find your way back. Even from the darkest track.